salvage crews opened a storeroom below the waterline of a raised battleship at Pearl Harbor and found 3 sailors inside. The emergency rations at that station had been eaten. A manhole cover below the pumps, over the fresh water tanks, had been removed, and there was a calendar. 17 dates were marked with an X, running from December 7th through December 23rd. The ship was West Virginia. She had lain on the bottom of that harbor for more than 5 months. The salvage report said only that there was evidence men had lived for considerable periods and finally died for lack of oxygen. That is as far as the record ever went on how they died. Japan needed less than 2 hours to wreck the American battle line at Pearl Harbor. 4 battleships went to the bottom. Which of the dead ships were worth raising? Nobody in December of 1941 could have answered that, and nobody could have told you that 2 of them would come back, not quite 3 years later, to fight in the last battle line action in the history of naval warfare. The planes came over Battleship Row at 5 minutes to 8 on the morning of December 7th, 1941, and it was all effectively finished by 9:45. 7 battleships lay moored along the southeast side of Ford Island. An 8th, Pennsylvania, sat in dry dock number 1 across the harbor. Japanese planners had modified their torpedoes to run in shallow water and converted battleship shells into armor-piercing bombs. They had one objective: destroy the American battleship force in a single morning. They did not quite manage it. The difference took 3 years to show. West Virginia took torpedoes into her port side in the first minutes. She flooded fast and settled upright onto the harbor bottom with her superstructure still above water. Her own officers counterflooded to keep her from rolling over, and that is a large part of the reason she was salvageable at all. 2 torpedoes and a bomb found California. She had been checking her fuel voids for leaks after topping off her tanks, so the covers were off over the voids. Over the next 3 days, the harbor came in through the one part of the ship that was open. She settled with her decks awash. About 100 of her men were dead. Oklahoma rolled about 150 degrees. Her masts drove into the harbor bottom and stopped her there, not quite upside down. Arizona was finished in seconds when a bomb reached a forward magazine. She did not die in seconds. She burned for hours. But everything from just abaft her bow to amidships was destroyed. The sides of her bow were blown outward almost flat. Her forward turrets and conning tower dropped more than 20 feet into the hull. 3 more battleships were hit that morning, and not one of them sank. One of the 2 bombs that hit Tennessee never went off. Then she spent the morning trapped. The sinking West Virginia had wedged her against the concrete quays. Burning oil swept down and buckled her hull plating from the after turret to the stern. Her machinery was untouched. The Navy's own history calls her relatively unscathed. Freeing her meant demolishing the quay, and she was not loose until the 16th of December. Maryland was moored inboard of Oklahoma, shielded by her, and took 2 bombs forward. 4 of her crew were killed. She was repaired and back at sea by the end of February. Pennsylvania sat in that dry dock with no water under her, which sounds like safety. A bomb came through into a casemate and killed the men there. A section of torpedo tube, blown off a destroyer sharing the dock, landed on her forecastle. 29 men died aboard her that morning. Nevada alone tried to run. She got underway, drew every dive bomber in the sky, and her crew put her aground at Hospital Point rather than let a sinking battleship cork the harbor mouth. Tugs pushed her across to Waipio Point, where she backed into the shore hard enough to damage her rudder and a shaft. Her flooding was not complete until the following day, so the accounting on the morning of December 8th read like this: 4 battleships sunk, 1 aground, 3 damaged and repairable, and a harbor floor full of steel the United States could not afford to leave there. Only 2 modern battleships had joined the fleet. The rest were still building. Divers were in the water within a week. They made about 4,000 dives, 16,000 hours underwater. Add the contractors' civilian crews, and the total is nearly 5,000 dives, 20,000 hours. Men working blind inside flooded compartments, in water thick with fuel oil, cutting steel by feel, patching torpedo holes the size of a room from the outside, while the ship above them stayed full of water. The salvage organization formed on the 14th of December, and Captain Homer Wallin took it over in January. It drew Navy divers from the shore commands and the rescue ships, and shipyard workers from Pearl Harbor itself. It drew civilian crews from the Pacific Bridge Company, who designed and built the patches and the cofferdams. Wallin gave them a full share of the credit. Not all of the danger was mechanical. Inside sealed compartments, harbor water reacted with the organic matter trapped in them and gave off hydrogen sulfide. In open air, that gas smells of rotten eggs. Wallin's report sets out the two properties that made it lethal here. Absorbed in water under high pressure, it has no smell at all. And at higher concentrations, it paralyzes the sense of smell outright. A man cannot tell that it is killing him. On the 7th of February 1942, aboard Nevada, Lieutenant James Clarkson removed a cap from the air test fitting of the steering engine room. He was in a trunk with limited space and limited air. The gas that came out killed him. Machinist mate De Vries reached him first and died later at the hospital. 6 men in all were overcome. After that, crews clipped litmus paper to their suits to reveal the gas, and men going into unventilated spaces went in wearing masks. The Navy divers came through their 4,000 dives without a single serious casualty. That is Wallin's own phrasing. The contractor had 1 casualty. Not every ship could be saved, and the Navy knew it early. Arizona was beyond worthwhile recovery. Salvage officers looked at building a cofferdam around her and found the coral bottom too porous to hold the water out. Her superstructure was cut down from May of 1942. Her after turrets went to the Army for coast defense batteries on Oahu. Crews went on stripping her into October of 1943. She was struck from the register on the 1st of December 1942. What is down there now is what they left. Oklahoma was rolled upright and refloated and never fought again. Sold for scrap, she foundered in a storm under tow in May of 1947, and nobody knows exactly where she is. Utah was rolled part way and then given up on. She slipped instead of gripping. The effort was abandoned with her about 38 degrees over, and she is still off Ford Island today. The ones that mattered came up. Nevada was refloated in February of 1942 and sailed for Puget Sound in April under her own power. California came up on the 24th of March. West Virginia, the hardest job of the 3, was patched hole by hole and floated on the 17th of May. Raising them turned out to be the smaller half of the problem. The ships that went back to the war were not repaired. They were rebuilt. West Virginia, California, and Tennessee came out of their yards as different ships. Torpedo blisters on the hull. The old cage masts gone, replaced by a single tower superstructure. A secondary battery of dual-purpose 5-inch guns that could shoot at aircraft. The part that decided everything arrived in a box. All 3 of them received the Mark 8 fire control radar. A Mark 8 did not help a gunner see. It made seeing unnecessary. It held a target in total darkness through the clutter of its own shell splashes and fed a continuous firing solution to the main battery. 2 of the 3 that got it had been raised off the harbor bottom. Maryland, Pennsylvania, and Mississippi had not needed that kind of reconstruction, so they kept older Mark III sets. A Mark III could find a target, but not hold it the same way. In 1943, that distinction meant nothing at all. On the 25th of October 1944, it decided a battle. The Japanese come south. By late October of 1944, American troops are landing at Leyte, and the Japanese Navy commits what it has left to breaking up the invasion. 1 column is ordered through Surigao Strait and into Leyte Gulf from the south. It is led by Vice Admiral Shoji Nishimura, and it amounts to 2 battleships, Fuso and Yamashiro, the heavy cruiser Mogami, and 4 destroyers. Fuso and Yamashiro each carry 12 14-inch guns in 6 twin turrets. They were commissioned in 1915 and 1917. Nishimura has no air cover. He is not blind. Mogami's float plane has found Leyte Gulf for him that morning. In the evening, he detaches Mogami and 3 destroyers to sweep the water ahead of him. What he cannot see is what is waiting across the far end of the strait. There, Rear Admiral Jesse Oldendorf has 6 battleships, 8 cruisers, 28 destroyers, and 39 PT boats. He has built his killing ground in depth. The PT boats will find the enemy and report. The destroyers will work the flanks with torpedoes as the Japanese come up the narrow water. And across the mouth of the strait, the battle line will be lying broadside onto a column that can only answer with its forward guns. At 3:48 in the morning, the line forms up at 1,000-yard intervals. West Virginia leads. Behind her come Maryland, Mississippi, Tennessee, California, and Pennsylvania. 5 of those 6 were at Pearl Harbor. 2 of them were still on the bottom of it in 1942. A PT boat under Ensign Peter Gadd picks the Japanese up at 10:36 that night. The boats close in. They never get near enough for a shot. The Japanese find them with searchlights and starshell and drive them off with gunfire, and the boats make smoke and run. A shell out of Nishimura's column catches one of them a glancing blow. It strikes the forward torpedo in its rack, shatters the warhead, tears up the deck planking, and goes out through the bow above the waterline. Neither the shell nor the torpedo goes off. What the boat with a contact cannot do is get the word out by radio. The most important contact report of the night has to travel by hand. Boats run south through the dark, hunting for a set that works, and the report finally reaches Oldendorf at 26 minutes past midnight. It is the first hard fix on the enemy Oldendorf has had since the previous morning. He knows where they are and that they are coming north. Captain Jesse Coward takes Destroyer Squadron 54 down the strait in 2 groups, 1 along each shore, to attack from both flanks at once. His eastern group, Remy, McGowan, and Melvin, fires 27 torpedoes just after 3 in the morning, at ranges of 8 to 9,000 yards. The western pair, McDermott and Monson, put 20 more into the water. Fuso opens fire. Then 3 torpedoes go into her starboard side, credited between Melvin and McGowan, and she slows to about 6 knots. She does not stop. She works back up to 16 knots and comes on after her sister. Minutes later, Yamashiro takes a torpedo on the port side and keeps going too, back to 18 knots inside 6 minutes. Michishio goes dead in the water. Asagumo is hit forward, loses her bow, and limps away, making 10 knots. Yamagumo blows up outright, and the flash is visible from the American battle line at the far end of the strait. At 3:30, Nishimura signals his situation north. 2 destroyers damaged, Yamashiro hit by 1 torpedo, fighting capability unimpaired. That message has been read ever since as the report of a man with no idea what was happening to him. The wrecks say it was very nearly accurate. 2 minutes later, the destroyer Daly fires 5 torpedoes into the dark ahead of her. 3 minutes after that, the light cruiser Denver locates Nishimura's command frequency and starts jamming it. 12 minutes after Daly fired, her bridge watch counts 3 explosions along Fuso's port side. Boats 20 miles away and a Japanese cruiser report the same thing at the same moment. Fuso bursts into flame and falls out of the column. That is almost certainly the blow that kills her. Nobody knew it until a survey ship found her wreck in 2017 in one piece and keel up. A study published in 2024 went back through the action reports and counted the holes. What is about to come up the strait into the American broadside is 1 battleship, 1 cruiser, and 1 destroyer. 3:52 in the morning. Range 22,800 yards. West Virginia opens fire. She hits with her first salvo. There is no walking the shells in by eye. Every correction comes off a radar scope, and the Mark 8 has been holding Yamashiro since long before anyone aboard could have seen her. West Virginia fires 93 rounds from her 16-inch guns. Tennessee and California open next, with the same radar. Tennessee puts out 69 rounds from her 14-inch guns. California fires 63, though her first 6 salvos go at a destroyer. Yamashiro takes almost all of it. She fights back. She is hitting nothing, and she is alone. Maryland never gets a lock on Yamashiro at all. She looks where West Virginia is shooting, finds a target 5 degrees off that bearing, and puts 40 rounds into it in 6 minutes. The study credits her with 5 hits. It is not Yamashiro. It is Mogami. For 80 years, the histories said Maryland ranged in off her sister's splashes and joined the pylon. Her division commander's report says she was on a different target. Mississippi holds her fire. She has a solution and gives it up. The admiral riding her has committed the battle line to open on the second group on the radar. The lead-heavy ship in that group is Fuso, already dying 15 miles back. He is waiting for a target that is never going to arrive. Pennsylvania never fires at all. Her forward radar cannot raise a signal on the bearing she has been given, and her plot decides the ships out there must be American destroyers pulling back. The one Pearl Harbor battleship that had been out of the water when the bombs fell spends the last night of the battleship era with her guns loaded and silent. The gunfire lasts 17 minutes. At 11 minutes past 4, Mississippi finally fires. 1 salvo, 12 guns. It is the last salvo any battleship has ever fired at an enemy in a battleship action, and the plotting done since suggests it did not go into Yamashiro at all. It went into Mogami, already burning and turning away. 4 minutes later, Maryland and the others unload their guns through the muzzles, because there is nothing left to shoot at. It is still the last time in the history of naval warfare that a battle line crossed an enemy's T. In the study's reconstruction, Fuso goes dead in the water around 4. She goes down by the bow, drives it into the seabed, and comes to rest keel up, her hull broken amidships by the impact. Her stern stands out of the water, ringed with burning oil, for long minutes before it goes under. Yamashiro rolls over at about 19 minutes past 4 and takes Nishimura with her. Mogami is abandoned at 10:47 that morning, and a torpedo from the destroyer Akebono finishes her just before 1 in the afternoon. American losses for the night come to about 39 dead and 114 wounded. Almost every one of them was aboard a single destroyer, Albert W. Grant, caught between the 2 lines. She was hit 22 times by Yamashiro's secondary battery and by 6-inch fire from the American cruiser Denver. Denver's radar had her down as the Japanese destroyer Shigure, running in to launch torpedoes. Not one American battleship was hit by Japanese naval gunfire. The battle line was already finished as an instrument of war. Surigao Strait was not the future of naval warfare. It was the end of something that had run for very nearly 300 years, since English fighting instructions first ordered a fleet into line ahead in 1653. And it was settled in the dark by a radar set. But the ships that ended it were specific ships. 2 of them had been on the bottom of Pearl Harbor. Men working blind in oily water pumped them out compartment by compartment, and in one of them, when they reached the lower storerooms, they found the calendar. Japan chose which of those ships to sink. It never got to choose which ones stayed sunk. For more from Nick's World War II archive, subscribe.